Scott Taylor is the data whisperer. He typically can be found wearing his truth hat. He sometimes puts on a DATAcated t-shirt, and sometimes he covers it up, but
I forgot to change.
no, don't change.
I did a thing like I'll be right. I gotta get my shirt. I forgot to change my shirt. I'm sorry, Kate.
Oh my God, I think we're okay. So Scott has helped countless companies by enlightening business executives to the strategic value of proper data management. He's got a book out telling your data story. I've been reading through it, Scott, now, so it doesn't look brand new anymore. There we go. Oh, I see Susan's got her truth hat. So this book is available now, and it is 99% buzzword free, which I'm sure Scott will tell you that himself. Scott is an avid business evangelist, original thinker, and he continuously shares his passion for the value of data management through industry events, speaking opportunities such as the DATAcated Inner Circle. He's done blogs, videos, white papers, podcasts, cartoons, puppet shows. He pretty much does it all sorts of, all forms of thought leadership. He lives in Connecticut. He likes to go kayaking, and he can juggle pins, which I have yet to see. And he can blow a square bubble, which I've yet to see as well.
Yes, take my word for it there. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Kate, for that marvelous introduction. Hi, everyone. His energy is also super high. Okay, I'm looking. I'm not going to be distracted by the chat here. Let me share my screen, as they say in the trade. Yeah, all right, see my DATAcated inner circle. We're in the inner, so you've got the outer circle, then you've got the inner circle, then you have Kate right here as the core, which we all revolve around. So we're here to honor Kate in her DATAcated circle. I'm here to tell you about telling your data story, leveraging the 3 V's of data storytelling for data management. Did you want to pop that poll up there, Kate? Do we want to figure that out, or probably not? No, we're good without the poll. So anyway, oh yeah, so what is your, love to know a little bit about the background here of the folks who are listening and watching. So if you want to add that in, we got a student, we got an other, we got more, we got plenty of other. It's always good to have other. So it's just general group, but I take the world and I look at the space really from the data management side of the space. Now, before we get too far along, I know we're in this inner circle. There's always a lot of controversy about who's the most DATAcated. And I just want to put my case in there. The top LinkedIn top voices were announced today. I didn't make that, but hopefully I'm still on the most DATAcated list, just as a matter of, so everybody knows, yes, I was member number 1. So that definitely gives me some points. Got a lot of the badges. I don't know if the rest of you have these badges. I got a whole array of badges over there, as you can see by my profile. I help people talk about data better, which isn't the best formed sentence in the world. And sometimes I use puppets. So if you haven't seen my puppets, take a look at my puppets of data. We've got all these great badges. And I recently picked up the latest Kate Crypto badge, which is very exciting as she expands her empire into DATAcated data ducats, which is an e-currency, cryptocurrency she's announcing. Gary V, eat your heart out. Anybody can do NFTs. Do you have your own currency? No, you don't, but Kate does, which is how she's paying me. My honorarium for this presentation today is in data ducats. So I can't wait to get those. Let's hear it for Kate. If you haven't done it already, let's just emojis going. It is a requirement if you're part of the inner circle and do present to show as many pictures of Kate as possible. That's a hidden requirement, but I'm happy to fulfill it there. Obviously, we have a good time together. I say silly stuff and she laughs. She says smart stuff and I go, ah, you're right. So it's a wonderful partnership so far. Let's keep it going. Where I come from and the way I look at the whole space is every enterprise has a data story to tell, which is about why managing data is of strategic importance to your organization. Now, most data managers, data governance folks know that, but the business people don't really realize that. And whether we expand this whole idea of data to also include analytics and data science, it still is challenging for many of the data experts in the space to explain the power and value of what they do at a strategic level. Focus on what I like to call the why rather than the how. So in this, and as was mentioned already, I've got a whole book on this topic, Telling Your Data Story, Data Storytelling for Data Management. I'm going to take you through the two types of data storytelling out there now. But mine focused on the data management side. As it was mentioned, 99% buzzword free. I didn't want to overpromise, so happy to keep it at that level, but trying to speak in a business accessible way. The way I observe it is one of the biggest things holding the entire data space back and keeping us from doing the kind of great work we want to do is the way we talk about it. And we seem to have this verbal pandemic in our space of people coming up with new terms for old problems. And it's just a cacophony of that sometimes gibberish. And I think the business leaders just turn off. So might have some examples of that, but I'm sure you've dealt with that too. So this book, oh, here's another picture of Kate, of course, with the book. That one works. I realized this was the first copy sold. She had the book before I had the book. She posted this picture before I even had the book. So she was right in there, early adopter, and she paid for the book in data ducats too. So I know I'm getting a royalty somewhere, but it hasn't been shipped yet. But there are lots of people who bought the book. Here's a whole bunch of them. People like this book. It's very photogenic. If you don't have the book yet, you want to pick it up. There's my biggest picture there, my wonderful grandson, who is now known in LinkedIn as Data Whisperer Jr. You want to take a look at this video on YouTube where I read him a data bedtime story, The Little Red Data Hen, which is a cautionary tale about the lack of stakeholder engagement. I'm sure many of you will find this relevant and resonate with the kind of struggle you are probably having in your organization. As you can see, he asked me, Pop, is data the new oil? So he's right on the terminology and the buzz and the hum in the space. I do a ton of stuff. I've done a ton of content. My background is from the supplier side. So I've worked at Nielsen, Dun & Bradstreet, WPP Kantar, all these large data organizations, and working with enterprises of literally every size at every level of maturity in every category all over the globe at the enterprise level. So enterprise companies, their challenges in data are probably more the same than they are different. The trick is to try and see that. And that's what my data storytelling technique is to help people create that narrative that's based on a lot of common themes and a lot of common challenges. So push out a lot of content, the book, the puppet show, Who's Who in Data Management and Analytica, got a YouTube channel. It's got all kinds of stuff. There I am with my DATAcated shirt on. Yes, I do wear it when I remember. And my boutique consultancy, Meta Consulting, in case you're wondering, no, we are not changing our name to Facebook. It's not happening. And you probably also noticed as the data whisperer, I don't do a whole lot of whispering. We save that for the data. We got to yell, tell, and sell about the power and value of data management. Close this poll here. And people try and be disruptive in the space. We're all trying to be disruptive, aren't we? We want to try and break through. I come by that honestly too. This is my 4th grade picture. I don't know if you can pick me out. There I am. I don't really think I've changed that much. In my 4th grade report card, my teacher wrote, Scott is disruptive and distracting to others. I took that as a compliment, so I still do. If you want to sum up my entire data philosophy, I can sum it up in 3 words. Truth before meaning. We're all trying to determine the truth in data. We're all trying to derive meaning in data, but it has to be in that order. It is not chicken or egg here. It is egg and omelet. You have to determine the truth in your data first before you derive meaning out of it. Obviously, I'm on the truth team, hence the meaning of my truth hat, but you've got to have that truth first. Let me show you some examples. So when I say truth before meaning, I bifurcate the entire data space into 2 big buckets. There's something going on there that sounds fun. I don't know what it is, and I'm not involved with it. In any case, truth before meaning, data management versus business intelligence. Now, I do this at the kind of conceptual level, but between these 2 poles, there's lots of things underneath that. So when we think about determining the truth, data management, data governance, data quality, data stewardship, master data, reference data, metadata, MDM, RDM, PIM, DAM, all those foundational activities that enterprises have to do to curate and steward and govern and manage that foundational core content that should flow into every type of system and every type of operational and analytical activity. Determining that truth first, before deriving meaning through business intelligence in all its incarnations, analytics, big topic, data science, data literacy, visualization, artificial intelligence, machine learning. All those things are taking data and creating extended and additional value from it to drive the business. Both of these things are super important, but I think the space and data folks in general, and certainly business leaders, tend to be more distracted by that deriving meaning part without realizing there's a direct connection to the determining the truth part. So when you think about data storytelling in general, and here's a bunch of books on data storytelling. I think Kate wrote some too. I should probably put yours up there as well. It's business intelligence storytelling. It's storytelling with analytics. It's storytelling about using data, putting it in a business context to drive action. Again, critically important. That's how you get that tangible value out of data. But there's a second data storytelling technique and approach as well, which is data management storytelling, stories about making data. You got to make it and you got to use it. So not Sophie's choice here. You need both. Every organization needs to tell both kinds of stories. I felt there was room in the space for a voice for the data management side to construct that narrative, to get the funding and support and engagement that they need from the business side. And everything good that happens in data management then moves to the good that can happen in business intelligence. These things are directly related. So I feel the truth about data management is every digitally transformative customer initiative, every as-a-service offering, every foray into e-commerce, every enterprise software implementation, every data science algorithm is inextricably linked to the successful output of data management efforts. There's no way around it. Now, don't take my word for it. If you want to take word for, somebody more on the data science side, if Andrew Ng, if you follow him, a big leader in artificial intelligence, article written in Forbes. There's a big validating media outlet. And in there, he said he's starting a campaign for data-centric AI. He says he's launching a campaign to shift the focus of AI practitioners from the model and algorithm development to the quality of the data they use to train the models. Really wonderful. I support that. I should try and reach out to him and be part of that campaign. So AI, which a lot of you and a lot of data scientists obviously are focused on, equals the model plus the data. Now, if you come where I come from, for decades, we called that GIGO. That's what it is. Maybe that'll be part of his campaign, GIGO. I don't care how you say it, but that inextricable link between what goes in and what comes out is undeniable. It's as sure as gravity. What goes up must come down. What goes in must come out. We've got to follow that and remember that and put as much weight, as Andrew suggests, on the in part, the goodness in, to get the goodness out. I like to articulate this idea as the golden rule of data. Do unto your data as you would have it do unto you. What you put into data management is what's going to come out of business intelligence. So if you put bad data into ERP, you get a lousy ERP. You put bad data into CRM, you get missed customer opportunities. Bad data into FinTech, you'll get a visit from the regulators. Bad data into ML, bad robots. Bad data into BI, BS. Bad data into AI, AS, artificial stupidity. So no matter how you slice it or how you dice it, the golden rule of data prevails. Do unto your data as you would have it do unto you. Another way to say it is good decisions you make on bad data are just bad decisions you don't know about yet. So I keep pounding on this same theme of the importance of data management in the broader data and analytics landscape. this reckoning and recognition by folks and leaders like Andrew Ng, who are saying and realizing in their way of articulating it, spend more time on the data and you're going to get better results rather than spend all this time on your model. Simple approach, hard to do sometimes, but something important to remember. And it's really what it's all about. So in machine learning, they talk a lot about feature engineering, working on features. We got to get more features. What are those features? We got to engineer these features. Those features are about the instances. The attributes you have on data are about the entities. The columns of data you have with all that insight are about the rows. Really easy to add columns of data, really hard to align rows. Really common to have lots of silos, but you got to have that foundation. People have vertical activities, you need the horizontal. I think you see a pattern here. Look for that pattern. Remember both. The data is about the rows. I'll take you through some examples of that. So every enterprise does have a data story to tell. So let's get into some of those techniques we use to try and tell that data management story. And if you're new to data management, hopefully this will help you understand that part of the space more. A lot of my book was written specifically for the data management audience, but I think there's a wider attraction from the broader data community, especially in data science, because I often hear data scientists talk about how they get closer to the business. How do we understand the business? Where do we drive the business? So I think I give a kind of a look and some techniques on how to do that part. The way you drive the business, the first step you got to do is understand your business. How do you understand the business that you're in a way that you can apply the kind of data activity you've got? So every business that I've ever dealt with at the enterprise level is trying to do the same thing. And the story they've got to tell is based on the essence of their business, the core of their business, why their business exists. And so all businesses exist to provide value to relationships through their brands at scale. Provide value to relationships through brands at scale. That's the thesis of every business. That's the purpose of every business. Now, that's a very generic statement on purpose. So it's extensible and relatable and relevant to every kind of enterprise. So you got to make this specific to yourself and to your own business. And so think about the words you might use and the way you might articulate it based on your own vocabulary, one of my 3 V's. So the first one here, value. What do we mean by value? Really only 3 ways to create value at an organization: grow, improve, protect. You want to grow the business, increase sales. You want to improve the business, operational efficiency. You want to protect the business, mitigate risk. Just 3 examples. The part of the space I'm in, data management, that core data, master data, reference data, metadata, can actually do all 3 of those things at once, sometimes with the same record. So whether it's analytics or data management, you're looking to provide value to your relationships through your brands at scale by growing, improving, and protecting the activities and relationships you have in your organization. Scale means technology. Very simple. And that's your opportunity. That's really the place you want to focus on. And that's why I talk about this at the enterprise level. Enterprises are trying to expand and scale. This is not for a boutique or a startup with 2, kids in a garage there. Not yet, till they get bigger. But the idea of scaling, making things scale, doing something instead of 10 times, you do it 1,000, or instead of 1,000, you do it 1,000,000,000 times. That takes technology, hardware, software, data. If you have data, you need data management. It's that clear to me. It's that direct to me. So anything you're trying to do that has a scale element to it, stick your nose in there and see where data can help, because they can't do it without it. The relationships, depends on what you mean by that. What's the terminology you use? Is it customer, vendor, partner, prospect, citizen, patient, client? Every company has relationships. You don't have relationships, you don't have a business. The relationships you have and the data about those relationships is the most important part of your organization. You don't manage that data about relationships, you can get into a lot of trouble, you can miss a lot of opportunities, you can expose yourself to a lot of risk. And this is an example of the different ways people talk about relationships in their company, but they're all relationships. And then brands, What's that brand? Every company's got a brand. Every company has a service or a product or an offering. There might be a location or a banner. It might be made up of ingredients and materials, piece parts, all the things that go up into creating that brand and that brand experience. All that takes a lot of data. So if you're in the master data space, you have any experience in MDM, you probably recognize that those yellow and pink bulleted words are classic master data domains. And people need to manage those through data management. And so if you agree that you're trying to provide value to relationships for your brands at scale, how's the data you've got on your relationships and how's the data you've got on your brands? It probably, if it's like most organizations, sucks at some level and needs management. It needs better structure. It needs to be higher quality. It needs to have hierarchies and taxonomies and geographies and identifiers and those foundational core structural things that help make data manageable in an organization. Now let's talk about the 3 V's of data storytelling here. I'm going to go through these as well. My 3 V's, obviously a knowing wink to the 3 V's of big data, but mine are vocabulary, voice, and vision. And so let's take them kind of in order here. First one is you want to establish an accessible vocabulary. The words you use in your organization are really important. The language you use, the terminology, the nomenclature, it's got to be the language of the business. We use a lot of terms in the data space that make no sense to business folks. They're confusing, they're complicated. Sometimes they're just pure buzz. Analytics graph hub fabric mesh. There's all this debate today about the mesh and the fabric and the lake house. Is that really something that the CEO wants to hear about? And as a side problem, a lot of those terminology are loaded with this idea that these are the new ways that are going to solve everything else. If you've been in this space long enough, there's these cycles. And the new hottest thing comes up and we need this widget, that'll solve it all. It never does, it never will. I'm not trying to be depressing. I'm just saying that there's more to it than that. And a lot of it has to do with how your organization accepts and understands data in their own context. So we got to use the language of the business if we want to talk to the business. And there is existing terminology in your own organization and in your vertical, in your space. Look at the standards bodies in your space. Often they have some kind of set of terminology that identifies and relates to all of the kinds of entities that you might deal with. So focus very much on your language, on your business language. If you've done the hard work to create a business glossary in data management, there you've operationalized these core entity definitions. What is a customer? What is a product? What is a market? Basic stuff. Make sure that is, you know it and your whole part of your organization knows it and people are fluent with it. Again, most people call the relationships they have customers, but if you work at a law firm, you don't call them customers, you call them clients. If you're a packaged goods manufacturer, you call the retailer the customer, you call the end user the consumer. If you're in healthcare, it's patients, it's not customers. They're all relationships, as I mentioned. You all want to structure them in similar ways, but the terminology is really important if you want to get your point across. And I think this is applicable no matter where you are in data, whether it's data management or business intelligence. Second thing you want to do is you want to harmonize to a common voice. Now, harmony doesn't mean everybody sings the same notes, but it does mean they sound good together. What is your pitch? How do you explain it? That classic kind of elevator pitch. If you had a minute or two with your CEO, how do you articulate why the work you are doing is important? Know that. You should know that anyway. You should understand that anyway. And practice it. Get fluent in it. Get up on your feet on it. This is all I do, so I know I'm pretty well honed in a lot of the techniques in terms of presentation and communication. But that's why I'm trying to share them with you to help you at least build up some of those soft skills, those things that help you engage and communicate with the folks that you're trying to help and that you're trying to get funding from and you're trying to get support from. So make sure your entire team can talk about this the same way. And make sure that you've got other folks in the organization that will support this story as well. They might be in sales, they might be in marketing, they might be operations, they might be in finance. What's the data story they can help you tell? And it's just natural that salespeople will listen to other salespeople. Marketing people will listen to other marketing people. You want to kind of create this kind of informal team or data heroes or folks you want to all pull together to help you market this idea throughout the organization. And that's really what it is. How do you market the value of data management or market the value of data science? Again, this is applicable to all sides of the data space, if you will, and get folks to see the benefits of what you have to offer. There's a lot of selling that has to do with this. And actually, there's a lot of sales tips in my book on just basic stuff. So if you're feeling a little skittish right now and you're like, oh, I never did, any plays in school, or I don't want to get up in front of folks, get better at that. If you work in a big enough organization, a lot of them have corporate communication departments that might be able to get you some help on building up a personal development aspect of your career. Presentation training, media training. These things are all really valuable when you want to get up in front of senior leadership or your own team or customers or anybody and help them understand what you're trying to say. So all that comes into the voice part. So the words you use, the way you talk about it, and finally, the vision. You want to illuminate your business vision. Why does what you do in data help enable the strategic intentions of your enterprise? It helps you get to where you want to go. That's the explanation that your board wants to hear. That's what your CEO wants to understand, or anybody at the C-level. Why is what you are doing help what I am trying to do? So know your company's vision. Do you really understand and can you live the way your company provides value to your relationships through your brands at scale? What's the word you use? What's the voice they have in the marketplace? What's the way that they articulate that? Learn that. Lots of tips and places to find that are annual report. Read your annual report. There's all the number part, there's that part, but there's those first couple of pages, usually really glossy when they print them, or the fancy laid out ones on the PDF that talk about the vision of the company, where the company's trying to go, why they're trying to get there, the value they bring. I will tell you, none of them ever say, the vision of our company is to have better data quality, or the vision of our company is to use AI more. Those don't happen. We got to link those things to why our company even exists. So look at your annual report, look at your Investor Day presentation. That's a great source. If you're not familiar with those, a lot of these, certainly all public companies, a lot of companies out there trying to get funding from the investment community, have a nice tight pitch where their C-level folks got all in their game day uniform to talk about why their business is important and why it's going to change the world. Look at those things. You will find clues and hooks and hints in those statements that relate directly or sometimes indirectly to the value of the work that you bring. So an example I always use, there's a vision of a company. I use an example. I've got 8 or 10 of them in the book. One of their published vision was they wanted to be the premier partner of choice to their customers and suppliers. That was the company one-line vision of this global organization. Customers, suppliers, those are relationships. How's the data about those relationships? Not that good. How can you possibly be the premier partner of choice with a customer if the data you've got about that customer isn't any good? There's ways to link those things together. So very simply again, vocabulary, the way to think about this very simply. Vocabulary, the words you use, the voice, the way you talk, and the vision, why it's important, and remembering that why. Now, so wrapping up here in my last couple minutes, if you want to live happily ever after and telling data stories about making data and data storytelling for data management, every enterprise has a data story to tell. It's about why you're bringing value to your relationships through your brands at scale. There's 2 types of data storytelling out there: about data, making it, data management, determining the truth, and data stories with data, business intelligence, putting in a business context, deriving meaning. You want to balance the how and the why. I over-rotate on the why because I don't think it gets enough focus, but obviously you need to know how you're going to do it. You want to balance those things, but you start with the why. That's a topic of that's a title of a very popular book by Simon Sinek. He popularized why. He didn't come up with it, but we've been doing why for a long time. But start with that why and understand that why before you spend too much time on the how. Got to do both, because what if they say yes? You got to get it done. You want to avoid a lot of false starts. I didn't go into them, but I pick on the idea of quality being very emotional, subjective terminology. Didn't know is my shorthand for data's the new oil. No, it's neither. I can go on for another half hour ranting on that. But these tired, old, cliched ways of thinking that you're talking about the value of data, they don't land. People don't understand them. Leverage those 3 V's, establish a accessible vocabulary, harmonize to a common voice, and illuminate the business vision. And an effective narrative is going to capture the hearts and minds of your business, unify and motivate your team. Does that lonely data steward or that solo data scientist, do they really understand the value of what they are doing every day and why that helps enable the company to meet its strategic objectives? I worked in more than my share of large organizations. And when people understand the why, as Nietzsche said, when people understand the why, they can endure almost any how. So you've got to have people understand that story. In the last page of my book, just to reinforce the value of data, hardware comes and goes, software comes and goes, but data remains. Most organizations really only have one data. They got to take care of it. So thank you, Kate. One more. Obligated every 20 minutes, you have to show a picture of Kate, no matter what. They're in our polka dots. I want to thank you, Kate, for bringing me into the inner circle here, allowing me to be member number 1. Thrilled as always to help you and be part of the great community that you're building. Thank you for listening. If you liked any of this stuff, if you're interested in this book, go to technicpub.com. Use my code DataWhisper. You'll save 20%. You can buy it on Amazon for full price too, but it's direct from the publisher. If you don't already, at least follow me on LinkedIn. There's my QR code. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Got a ton of videos, puppets, cartoons, and then some more serious stuff. And metametaconsulting.com is my website. We got all kinds of, it's basically a compendium of all the kind of content I put out there to help people reinforce the power and value of proper data management.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
That's my story.
I love it. I know you mentioned you're going to speak until I interrupt you. So I was like, let him wrap up before I get in there. Thank you so much for the presentation. I think we can remove the screen so I can see you better. We do have some questions from the audience. I have some questions as well. And guys, feel free to unmute yourself, get on camera if you're comfortable, because after a couple of minutes of Q&A, we're also going to do some breakout sessions for networking. I promise it's going to be fun, especially since it's a smaller group. I think it's even more fun for us to really get to know each other. First question here is, Scott, you mentioned that we need to establish an accessible vocabulary. And my question was, can you define accessible? And then Kim has a sort of a follow-up question on that. And she's asking, do you mean that everyone shares the same definition and these are made easily available for reference, or maybe just add some color on that?
Yeah, so I'd say, to answer Kim's question first, the answer is yes. Yeah, so do you have that common terminology? Do you all use the same words for the same thing? Really important. And it's not always the case in and when I'm accessible, do your business people understand it? You want to avoid this technical terminology? Let me give you some examples. And again, I know a lot of people spend a lot of time on this stuff, a lot of work, a lot of well thought through kinds of things, but I've challenged some of the terminology. Data product. All right, there's a lot of talk about data products. We need to create data products. Data product being like a defined set of data that has a very identifiable set of benefits. But the word product to the rest of your organization means what they sell as a business. So that term, why call it that? There's some talk in the data mesh space around data domains. And what they mean are departments. There's an existing term for data domains in master data management. It means kind of data. So you're already, you've got data people, if you've got a data mesh person and an MDM person in the room, and they're talking about data domains together, they are not talking about the same thing. And that's just the data group. So you can imagine what a business person thinks when they hear all these terms. I'm getting out of here. These people don't even agree. And they take their funding with them. So you want to use that accessible vocabulary that's already the words of your business. And then do that translation in your head. But I find when you use the terminology of the business, you get further. So just picked on a couple examples here, but there's plenty more.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that. We have another question here, and it's, what are your thoughts about the way many companies separate out the data analysis from the people who tell basically separating out data analysis from the people that tell the stories?
So you mean you've got analysts or data scientists, and then you've got like salespeople who need to use the data?
Yeah, I guess those people who sit down there and do all the coding or the analyzing and synthesizing of data, and then you've got a separate group of people who actually have to go out and tell those data stories.
Yeah, that's an identifiable gap in most spaces. I think data literacy as a practice is trying to close that gap. I think there's probably a counterpoint to that, business literacy. Do those coders and analytics folks understand the business well enough? Do the business people understand how to use that data in their business context? Yeah, it's a challenge. Is it getting, at least it's identifiable. I think it's as identifiable today as it's ever been. So if you want to think about, is there progress being made? At least it's being, people are recognizing, look, this is a challenge that a lot of organizations have. There's a whole bunch of techniques to try and overcome that challenge, but at least we've gotten past the first stage of denial and people recognize it's there. But it's all, for me, it's always go to the business side. Always, if you are a coder or you're a data scientist, I'll give you the same advice I gave my children when they went into jobs. It was like, it is impossible for you to learn too much about your business. There's always something to learn. There's always something to find out. And the beauty of being in the data side, whatever your expertise is, there's plenty of problems your business already has that data can help. Look for those.
Yeah.
Instead of, I just learned how to do this fancy reverse ETL, Python, R, whatever the heck it is. Okay, those are techniques. Important to know, but that's not the point.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, getting those quick wins and helping the business as much as possible, especially early on, is a great way to establish your value as a data professional. We also, last question for you here is, you talked about voice, you talked about vision and vocabulary, and I wanted to ask, what would be the first thing that you would recommend a company truly work on? I know all three are important and they might happen at some point simultaneously, but if you had to pick the first one that you have to really establish.
I would start in order. And because if you can't communicate, you're not going to make that progress. So start with that vocabulary. Learn your vocabulary, understand your vocabulary. Just the words you use are so important. The examples I gave, and there's plenty of them, of even data people using the same terms for different things. It just can get you off the track so quickly. The vision's already there, right? So you don't need to work on the vision. You need to work on understanding that vision and showing why what you do in data relates and enables that vision. But if you don't know the terminology, you may not even understand the vision when you get to that point. So if I had to pick one, again, they're all there. You put me on the spot here, Kate, I'd pick V number one as
vocabulary. Yeah, it makes sense. Speaking the same language is probably a good idea for the entire. And Kevin says that vocabulary has too many uses for the same acronyms. Yes, Kevin, I've definitely seen that. You go from one industry to the next, and one acronym will mean something else in a different space completely.
Yeah. So there's SQL. I do a whole rant on SQL. SQL, by the way, in the marketing space means sales qualified lead. So when your marketing person sees SQL, they're going like, why are they doing that? That's for sales qualified lead. Don't think they don't think that. And your CEO thinks SQL's just another movie off the same topic.